You are listening to Rocklaz Radio, a show where we talk about interesting things and interesting people. I am your host, Tanmay Shah. I am an NFT artist and an entrepreneur with diverse business experience. This show is self-sponsored. If you want to support the show, please feel free to check out my NFTs and get one for yourself. You can also become my patron. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and share this episode with your friends on all your social media, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you are. All the links will be given in the description. On today's show, we have a very special guest. She is the managing editor of Super Rare magazine. She is a journalist. Virginia Valenzuela, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here.
¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien, ¿cómo estamos?
Muy bien, tú. So, Virginia Valenzuela, aka Vinni, is the managing editor of Super Rare magazine, where she writes and commissions pieces on digital art, NFTs, Web3, and the metaverse. Her writing has been published in Wired, The Independent, High Times, Right Click and Save, and the Best American Poetry blog. She received a dual MFA in creative writing from the New School, where she was a research assistant to David Lehman. She was also recently awarded the 2022 Future Art Writers Award for Mosaic Philanthropy and invited as a juror for the next exhibition, The Digital Awakening. She is currently working on tokenizing her poetry and writing her debut novel. Wow. Welcome to the show once again, Vinni.
Thank you.
So, can you please tell us what we do is we want to know more about you, which is some untold stories or your life story in short.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in New York City and grew up in the literary scenes of the 1990s East Village. And so lots of poetry readings, lots of theater, lots of community art projects. So being part of a creative community has been part of my life from the very beginning. I studied theater as well as dance, and had always had an interest in writing and performing. And so I, studied both of those things for most of my life. And then after finishing my graduate degree in creative writing, I became an adjunct professor in journalism and communications and creative writing, which was really fun, underpaid, but really fun. And I eventually just decided that I wanted to be a full-time editor and full-time writer. And so I came to Super Rare magazine when they were establishing the editorial as its own wing of the company, which was really exciting because I had heard about Bitcoin, but I hadn't really gotten into crypto as a space. And so I was just kind of blown away by all of these things that were happening right under my nose that I had totally missed out on. So I kind of think about Super Rare plucking me from academia as a really big turning point in my life, because that's when my eyes were opened to all of the opportunities in blockchain. And I'm really happy that I was able to come in through fine art NFTs, because that is what aligns the most with my interests and with my background.
Wow. So we have a mixture of both the worlds here at Super Rare, journalism as well as your passion for art. So we were talking about Super Rare magazine. What is the main focus of Super Rare having an editorial side or having a magazine with them?
So our biggest function right now is how do we educate people and get them into crypto and NFTs? For the most part, our space is still very small. There are so many talented artists, really great collectors with an eye for digital art, and innovators in the space, but we still don't really have that that consumer base that's going to take us from startup kind of energy to a more established energy. And I think like any tech space, the more people that you have involved, both on the development side and on the creative side, the stronger that it's going to be. And so we're spending a lot of time writing about art and artists so that we can teach people how to look for NFTs, because right now there are millions of NFTs, literally millions of NFTs that have been minted. And I think for a lot of people, they don't know the first thing to look for. Part of that is because we haven't really been given the tools that we need in order to evaluate digital art, let alone NFTs, right? And so we talk about the differences between, for example, NFTs that are an artwork being tokenized as an NFT versus something that is using the NFT as a technology, in the same way that you might use a paintbrush. The type of paintbrush will affect the type of sorry, the type of paintbrush will affect the type of painting that you create. And so we're working on creating this vocabulary and sharing that with people. And we're also exploring possibilities in the metaverse. We, for example, had a series where we asked, what is advertising in the metaverse going to look like? What are some of the pitfalls of what could happen given what we've seen happen in Web 2 with advertising, right? So we want to be having very basic conversations to help educate people, but we also want to have high-level conversations to make sure that we are not blindly going into Web3 and the metaverse without protecting ourselves.
Wow. That is so many things. And I think that makes, that's why it makes a super rare leader, not just as a platform, but as who's bringing in a lot of people and clarity in curation and what is things and trying to update everybody about that. So I think that is really something nice. With Super Rare, what I'm an artist, we have only known of it as a platform for which has gated participation in it. So this is a burning question I was going to ask you later on, but yeah. Many people want to know what is what is what are the criteria? What are you focusing on when you select artists on your onboarding them on your platform?
So to be clear, I don't work in curation, but I work with curation. So my answer is going to be informed by kind of what I've seen and also how I've played into the curation process as an editor who chooses artworks for articles. To back it up, what's really interesting to me about crypto art in general is that there is no one genre of crypto art, right? Crypto art can be anything from a 3D sculpture to a photograph to like a meme to glitch art, right? And so when you're talking about evaluating the conditions that make one piece of art better than another, it's actually really difficult with NFTs because of how vast the styles and skill sets are. What I've noticed with curation at Super Rare is that a lot of it has to do not only with the quality of the art being, aesthetically pleasing, subjectively, right? Because as of right now, we still have a curation team. And then we also have launched a DAO, which is based in the desire to decentralize curation. We have almost 15 spaces, which are each functioning as a smaller gallery that curate based on their taste. So we are expanding our curation to include more and more people. But, no matter how many people you have, it's still going to be subjective. So there's the aesthetic appeal of an artwork. There's the technological vigor. If it's doing something cool with smart contracts, for example, that has been something I've seen a lot of in the last 6 months. But a big part of it is also about artistic practice and community. The application includes a video, and I have heard from people in curation that the videos that are often the best at selling the artists are the ones that are talking about their passions and what goes into creating an artwork and how the artwork ties that artist to their community. So I think there are just so many things that go into the process that are important to take in, and to also make sure that you're not waiting to get onto Super Rare to start building that community and building your portfolio. There's so many talented artists who have been discovered on Foundation and OpenSea. So there are just so many different routes that you can take in order to get noticed, whether it's submitting applications or doing your work and kicking butt on other platforms. We did actually have a Twitter space yesterday where we were talking about the new ways in which we're going to open up curation to the community. So it's really exciting because, the curation element is a tricky one. On one hand, yes, it's totally gatekeeping in the same way that the traditional art markets have done it. On the other hand, though, I don't know if you've looked through OpenSea. I don't even know what to type when I go to OpenSea. There are just so many NFTs. I don't know what to look for. And so there is, kind of on the other hand, the fact that curation does help to allow people to find art that they love. So I think we're just trying to find Web3 solutions to this problem, and hoping that not only allows more people to come onto Super Rare, but that it allows the community to have a voice in making sure that we don't get bots who are selling other people's work, or scams, or, low quality artworks that people made in 5 minutes, in order to make money, right? That's not the artist community we want to foster. We want to make sure everybody's involved in their artistic practice, involved in community, and just, wanting to do something cool with crypto art.
Wow. So can the applicants keep applying, or what do you suggest on the strategy? If you don't hear back from Super Rare for a certain time, how long does it take to not respond, or you need to try again sort of phase?
So the application is going to be closed at a certain point in the future. We don't know when yet. So I would say the best thing to do is to really just grow your community on your own and build your portfolio on other platforms until we launch our multi-list system. Because something that I've always had a problem with the Super Rare application is that it does take so long to hear back. I've heard of the time frame being 6 to 12 months. I mean, 6 to 12 months is a lot of time that you're, not, that you're just waiting for something to happen, right? But the other thing I would say is I think there's a misconception in the crypto art world that once you get on Super Rare, it's like a golden ticket, and you're going to start selling pieces for 5 ETH and 10 ETH. That's just not true, right? The people who are the most successful on Super Rare are the ones who have cultivated a following elsewhere. I think one great example of this is Nude Yoga Girl, who takes these amazing portraits of herself doing really intense, difficult yoga poses. And then she manipulates the photograph to make really cool art. And she's somebody who had a very big following both on Twitter and on other platforms. And so she's come into being a pretty well-known figure already, even though she was onboarded, I think, 6 months ago or so. So yeah, I would say working on your communities, working on your art, minting on other platforms. I see a lot of artists coming from Foundation and Known Origin. I think those are two really great platforms to get started on, and just, trying to even get your artwork with Mokta or other online galleries and online communities so they can be shown in the metaverse, for example. It's not Super Rare is the panacea to your art career, right? It's a great bonus, and I think it's a great stamp of approval. And I think that it's equally important to do that hustle, right? You don't become a great artist because you get featured in one good gallery. It's because you've spent years cultivating your art and your following.
Does that mean that artists with no following, don't stand a chance?
No, I wouldn't say that, because I've seen it on the other hand There's this one artist actually called Friend Five, and Friend Five is the creator of the first NFT I ever bought last year. And they don't really have a lot of following on Instagram or Twitter. And, they DM me every once in a while, which is like lovely, but they're not as active as other artists I've seen. But this is still a creator who has sold tons of artworks on many platforms by not really committing to social media. So I don't know what his secrets are. Yeah, I don't know about the ways in which some of these communities are created IRL as well. I mean, I've seen a lot of people like kind of going on the conference circuit as well. I don't know how impactful that is, but I can also say that you tend to see the same people at all of these conferences and a lot of the same artists, a lot of the same, community managers and CEOs, which is kind of cool. I wasn't used to in the past seeing such high level people and even becoming friends with them just by going to conferences. So I think that's another way too, and like building your artistic community in person. I mean, here in New York, there are a ton of cool meetups for different people to get involved with crypto and with NFTs. And so I think that's another great way of doing it. But yeah, I think there's just a way to cultivate community like on the marketplaces themselves without necessarily committing to crypto Twitter or to Instagram. When you like follow other people and have people follow your work and like your works, that's all very impactful as well.
So are you looking for artists who have one similar style, or are you open to experimental artists as well?
I mean,
like you have to submit 3 artworks.
Me personally, I love experimental work. Like I said, I'm not in curation. I'm sure Super Rare would look a lot weirder if I were in curation. But I think there's definitely like open-mindedness towards this. A couple of articles that we have in Super Rare magazine that are great to look at if you're someone who is interested in getting in the platform are our new artists on Super Rare, which is published every single Friday. There'll be a new artist on Super Rare later today for people to peruse. And then we also have our top 10 picks by Paloma and our top 10 picks by Anne. And those are 2 of the curators who bring on artists into Super Rare. And we also have features by Mika, who is another curator. And so if you're looking at these lists, which can be found in the magazine, and also features, which can be found on the main website, you can see what these curators like. And I think something that'll give a lot of people hope is the fact that their tastes are all over the place. I mean, there are, kind of sketchbook drawing types that are accepted. There are like beautiful MP4s of, cool metaverse lands, portraits, photography, abstract art, contemporary art, AI art. So there's really just a vast array of styles that our curation team looks at and that they accept onto the platform on a weekly basis. I mean, people are onboarded all the time. And so I think as the crypto art movement continues to utilize new forms of artworks, including, for example, poetry and, AI generated artworks, we're going to continue to follow the trends in the space and whatever people are doing, because, that's kind of, to me, the point of crypto art. It's that it's about experimentation and it's about looking to the future while, nodding to the past, or maybe not even nodding to the past. Maybe we're all just like in this simulation via artwork, and that's great too.
Interesting. Yeah, I like the spirit which comes in. I mean, I love the vision there. About the DAO and decentralized curation, don't you think that would flood the Super Rare as a platform with many more artists coming in, and it would just become another foundation or OpenSea in future? What do you think about that?
So as the founders described yesterday in our Twitter space that anybody here could check out on our Twitter page, the new model is going to allow anybody to come on and to create an artist profile that will be open to the public. The artist profile will have artworks, but they will not be tokenized as NFTs until that artist has been either, onboarded by one of the spaces or by the Super Rare Labs team, which will still be a part of the curation process, but we're not going to be the centralized entity that we are today. I actually think this is a great proposition for growing and scaling our platform because there are just too many talented artists for us to be able to onboard. And there have been so many great artists who have been rejected from Super Rare. And, why? Because taste is subjective. And that's why we have people who might have applied 2-3 times and they get accepted on the third time. I don't know why. I can't say, maybe their art got better between the first and second. Maybe somebody else looked at their application the second time or the third time. So there are all these factors that come into it. What's cool about the proposition of our future multi-list idea is that anybody can go create a profile, and then everyone in the community could like that profile. And as that profile continues to grow with likes from the community, they're more likely to get noticed by a collector. We're also continuing to grow our DAO to have more and more spaces. I believe we're launching another space race shortly. And so that's going to be, 5 to 10 new curators who are going to come in. And what I love particularly about what Spaces has done for Super's curation is that we now have not only whale collectors who have been able to establish their own space in the DAO to onboard artists, we also have artists coming in to bring, their knowledge of the crypto art space and their communities. For example, I spoke to Carlos Marcial, who's, sorry?
By spaces, you mean Twitter spaces, or are you referring to something else?
So we call our spaces within the DAO spaces. So they're like little satellite galleries that are part of the Super Rare DAO. Yeah, it's a little confusing. We get there's the Twitter spaces and the Super Rare spaces. So we onboarded Carlos Marcial and his wife Alondra Duran, who are together the operators of Metafísica, which is completely dedicated to onboarding Latin American artists onto their Super Rare space. And so there you have someone who's not only bringing in people from their artistic community, but it's also diversifying the people who are now able to mint on that space. And, similarly, we have the Verse that was established earlier this year, who's bringing poetry NFTs to the Super Rare ecosystem. And so as we continue to have more and more different kinds of people with different tastes in art and different communities that they're connected to, that's going to bring more and more people into the arena as well. And, we're talking about in the next, let's say 5 to 10 years, we're going to live in a world with literally trillions of NFTs. So
absolutely.
That's crazy. How do you collect in that world? And also knowing that people can easily use software, throw in a picture, and it turns into a glitch artwork, right? Or there are just so many ways to cut corners when it comes to making art online. And, I think Super Rare's mission is going to continue to be separating those types of artworks from the artworks that are hand-coded glitch or that are like made with a certain intentionality that really speaks to artistry, not making money selling NFTs.
Not quick fix buy or quick get rich quick scheme kind of works.
Exactly. We want to empower people who would be spending hours making these artworks, whether they made money or not. I think that's the thing a lot of people forget, especially the fact that it was kind of crazy. A few months after I started working at Super Rare, was when Xcopy started really blowing up, and he, his work broke one record. Like on the secondary market, one of his artworks sold for $3 million. And then like a week later, another one sold for $4 million. And I was just like, oh my God, what is this? And I had the opportunity to speak with him briefly. And, he was just saying he was making work on Tumblr in 2010. Like he never thought in his wildest dreams he'd be making millions of dollars off of artworks, you know? And so I think people forget because of these crazy sales that we see that most of these people who are now icons and pioneers in the space were just making art that they liked, and they were happy to put it on a marketplace and, you know, maybe make 20 bucks off of it in 2018. I mean, things have changed so quickly, and I think it's every artist's dream to make money off of their work. As a poet, like knowing that poetry NFTs are a way that I could support myself is revelatory. I mean, it's a dream come true, but it's also like a sigh of relief, right? But it doesn't mean that you don't have to also put the work in to make it happen.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. 2018 must be the time when when Super Rare, X copies got on Super Rare, I believe. And yeah, 10 years of work. Even people he's doing it for 25, 30 years of his life. So it's not just
Exactly.
happening something which has happened in a year or two. Is the and
No,
as you mentioned,
exactly.
they have their own community. They have been having their own communities on other platforms.
Yeah, and when you think about like someone like Xcopy who is completely anonymous, nobody knows, you know, what this person looks like, what they do, you know, 9 to 5. I've also learned that most people that he knows IRL don't know that he's like a pioneer in crypto art. So he's just like to me, one of the coolest kind of people that I've ever had the pleasure of talking to via email, just because like
Okay, you didn't even hear his voice, so it was via email. Okay.
don't know his voice, don't know what he looks like. Here's my cat to say hello. um,
Hi.
See you later. But yeah, I love too that there's this ability for people to have that choice to remain anonymous, or to, you know, kind of take their newfound fame and put it out there. I mean, that's kind of another thing I love about this space, and something I've experienced as the editor at the magazine. You kind of see this vast array of people who take different approaches, not only to their artworks, but to their personas. But the point I was going to get at is that Xcopy has a huge following now because of all of the crazy sales and, you know, having become a pioneer in the crypto art space. But I can't really say that it was really so much social media that propelled his artwork into what we
Hmm.
know it to be today, right? So again, I think part of it is luck, part of it is, you know, making the right artwork at the right time. I don't know. There's so many factors that go into it. I mean, I kind of look at myself randomly getting hired by Super Rare, never having heard of Super Rare, knowing nothing about NFTs. Like, you know, things happen to people all the time, and I think it's just about continuing to work your butt off until that moment happens and you get that big chance to change your life.
Absolutely. So, talking about some of your views, what excites you the most about Web3? You have written blogs from what we can
Oh
learn from
gosh.
Web1 to Web3. You have written so many articles, other articles as well. So, what excites you the
Gosh.
most?
There's so many, so many things. I kind of have like spent a lot of energy keeping myself as a crypto generalist, but specializing in NFTs. I'm actually creating a class right now for Class 101 that is about the applications of NFTs across the metaverse and Web3. And so I think the thing I'm most excited about is that the NFT technology has only really been utilized for visual art thus far, but it's beginning to create traction with film, with music, with literature, with dance. There are just so many ways in which it's going to revolutionize the ways in which we consume art and culture. And beyond that, when you're thinking about NFTs as a way to really own everything that you have online, including parts of your digital persona, your digital identity, perhaps, you know, even parts of your legal identity as well. There are talks about soul-bound NFTs, which are NFTs that are connected to one person's wallet forever and can't be traded. And you could one day perhaps have a driver's license that would, be with you and it would recognize your qualifications, maybe a passport, a diploma from a school. There are just all these cool ways in which NFTs are going to, in my view, replace the ways in which we transact and cooperate.
Land records, property
right.
documents.
And even, you're talking about like land IRL and land in the metaverse, right? Like I had this lesson that I finished this week talking about the opportunities in gaming. And so I'm not a huge gamer. I love my Nintendo Switch. And, whenever I have extra time, I love to play my Mario Kart and my Super Smash Bros. But when I think about the possibilities of gaming utilizing NFTs, it gets me really excited because what NFTs are capable of doing, in my view, is changing us from consumers into producers and entrepreneurs and influencers. If we can own pieces of the things that we consume, that means we could have some sort of decision making in how things are created and how they are run. I'm also really excited about, governance, and especially in my experience being a part of the Super Rare DAO as an employee, and having tokens where I can vote on super rare spaces and I can vote on super rare improvement proposals. I mean, this is, to me, the most democratic way of functioning. And, if we had, for example, smart contracts, which are written in code, they are automatically triggered by an event, we wouldn't be in certain global problems that we have now where, something happens and people are like, that's bad, but we're going to deliberate on it and decide what to do next. It's like, if people knew there were instant consequences for certain actions, I think they'd be less likely to do it, right? Because all of politics, both domestic and abroad, is like playing this game of chicken and seeing what you can get away with. If there's no getting away with it because of smart contracts, like initiating consequences right away, I think that would change the ways in which we interact with one another. So yeah, if you can't tell, I was a social justice reporter before I came to Super Rare. So, making the world better for those of us who are not rich and powerful is like a huge part of why I love crypto. I really think this is something that we can do as long as we in the community continue to fight for those possibilities. It's just like Web 1. Thank you for bringing up my article in Right Click Save. It's called What Can Web 3 Learn from Web 1? I think most people forget that the internet was originally a Wild West. Like, it didn't have good infrastructure. You would type in a website and sometimes it wouldn't come up because the website, the internet just didn't have the connections or the connectivity that it has today. And it was mostly artists who were messing around and doing cool stuff. And it was when big business came in and started monopolizing the space that we kind of saw it turn into the Google and the Facebook and the Microsoft and, all these companies that we're constantly reeling against in Web3. But we have the opportunity now to reinvent our world and our systems of government and the way that we interact with one another. Because of crypto, we now have our own freaking piece of finance. We have value, right? I mean, to me, that's the thing most revolutions have lacked. It's having your own currency. So what can we do now that we have our own currency? And many of them, right? We have Bitcoin, we have ETH, we have all of these crypto coins outside of that. And we now have NFTs. We can demand exactly the world that we want to live in, and we can build it.
As you're speaking, I just got a thought. If the whole world and justice system had to come on blockchain, which blockchain would it be? If it is on a traditional Ethereum, if it is on Ethereum or any other blockchain which are already there, holders who have more stock of the currencies might benefit. No, again, there will be a gap between rich and poor again on that ways. So maybe UN needs to create its own blockchain.
No, possibly. I very much see the future being multi-chain because, like, So Ethereum is my favorite blockchain. I think it just has the most functionality and the most opportunities for people to build things between decentralized apps and marketplaces. And especially now that Ethereum 2.0 has launched, which is making Ethereum 99.9% more energy efficient, and we have many upgrades still to come that are going to reduce gas fees, for example. I think these are things that are going to make Ethereum just way more accessible to other people. But I also really love Tezos, and I think that the artist community on Tezos is really fascinating, and it's a really different kind of art that is minted on Tezos. And there's something about the price point being so much lower that actually encourages people to want to spend money there. I mean, I think I own like 5 NFTs on Ethereum, but I own 15 or 20 NFTs on Tezos because it's more affordable and it's just a different kind of collecting experience. But I also wonder if the Tezos experience that we're having now is similar to what Ethereum might have been like 3-4 years ago. But anyway, I really think that it's going to be multi-chain just because you can have blockchains that are designed with a specific purpose in mind. Like the co-founders of Ethereum wanted to make something that was like Bitcoin, but that had more functionality, like the smart contracts, the dApps, etc. So who's to say that there won't be another blockchain that comes in to function specifically for the UN or for a specific country, or one that's dedicated entirely to music industry revolution, right? So I think that we will function better having multiple chains working, because look at what's happening in the present, right? Is anyone benefiting from Google being the monster engine? Is anyone benefiting from that? Not really. So is anyone benefiting from Apple being the premier iPhone smartphone offering? I don't think so. So that's another thing that I hope we can really stick to our guns, having options.
What scares me about Google is how much of our own data they own.
Yeah. No, it's scary. And I mean, like, I don't even, I keep my Facebook, but I don't use it anymore. I'm starting to look at like using DuckDuckGo instead of Google, because something I used to teach in my journalism class was, the fact that every single one of these platforms uses a curated algorithm. So even if you're on Google and you type any word, let's say I type in, abortion, that's going to come up differently where I am in New York City than if I'm in the heart of Texas. And it's going to come up differently if I type it in Mexico or wherever, right? And so we are not really having any conversations like one-to-one anymore. We're all talking in our own propaganda bubbles. And I think people need to recognize, like, liberal politics, conservative politics, and everything else, we're living in our own propaganda bubbles. And, Web3 has the ability to help fix that. Something else we've talked about in Web3 circles is the ability to actually tokenize your own pieces of your identity, including your credit score, for example. That's something that affects you deeply. In the US, and I think in other places, like, your credit score determines what interest rate you get on a loan or on a credit card, and it determines whether you get that credit card. It can determine whether you get an apartment, whether you get a job. Like, it's really not cool, and we don't own it. In fact, we have to pay in order to see it. And so we could potentially tokenize our credit scores. We own it, and if an entity wants to look at it, they can pay us a fee, right? And so there are other opportunities to do that with other parts of our identities. But I think it's also important to note that Web3 is not as private as we think. I wrote an article about this in February, where, there are different ways in which, we kind of have geological stamps on where we are. And if you're someone who uses Coinbase, for example, to buy your crypto and then transfer it to a wallet, Coinbase has a ton of information on you that they share with other people. So we have to be smart, right? Web3 is not the big solution to everything. Web3 is going to continue to function while we unlearn how we have adapted to the world. We have to unlearn all of our Web 2 bad habits in order to truly realize what the Web 3 future is going to look like.
Absolutely. We are in a bear market right now.
Sure
And we
are.
say that 20%, when the market is 20% down, it's bear. But when the market is down for 2 or more quarters, it's a recession. So
Yeah.
what do
Good
you
times.
think is what do you think is going to happen over the next 6 months in Web3 and NFTs and in the near future? What are your views? As you're a journalist, you must be keeping a track of many things.
Many stats. Yeah, some of them good, some of them bad. We recently released a market analysis that was talking about the trends that we see in NFT collecting. And one of the main points that I wanted to bring to our audience is that, yes, a lot of PFPs or profile pic projects have tanked. Their floors are tanking, nobody's buying them. And that's an issue for the space. On the other hand, though, fine art NFTs have remained steady. People are still minting and collecting fine art NFTs. For any artists out there who are creating one of ones as well as multi editions, keep doing what you're doing, because while we're dealing with a lot of bad press and a lot of anti NFT headlines, they're arguing about the stereotype of what an NFT is. They're saying that there's no artistic value in Bored Apes and CryptoPunks. I might agree with you on the ape part, but CryptoPunks are kind of cool, but that's a talk for another day. But the artists that I've spoken to during the last few months have said, in some ways, they're grateful for the bear market, because during the bull run, they felt so pressured to continue to make artworks like faster than they could actually, create them, because there were so many buyers. And yes, that's great, but artists are having a really good time now, taking time with their concepts, taking time with thinking about what they want to create, and still minting and having sales, again, if they've established these communities and relationships with collectors. I think there's a little bit of a misconception with a lot of bear markets. I think a lot of people within Web3 like to say, oh, this is a cleansing of the market, because it makes them feel better. And I think that's true, but something I have seen and something I wrote about in my bear market analysis of NFT NYC called "We're Not All Gonna Fucking Make It" is just the fact that I've seen a lot of sloppy spending. Like, you can't deny that most, we're in a startup culture. Like, everybody who is starting a business, it's a new business, a couple years old. I mean, I work at a company that's 4 years old. And when you go to these conferences and you go to these events and these parties, I see crazy spending. I see way too much food, fancy food, crazy venues, people renting boats. It's kind of crazy. And so I think this bear market for a lot of these companies has been like a smack in the face of being like, no, you should be spending your money on your devs and, recruiting and, putting money back into your product. And so I think the companies that are taking this bear market seriously and kind of reorganizing their priorities are going to do well. I think that companies that are relying on VC money coming in and investors coming in and just pushing their profit margins down the road are probably going to fail, because while VCs are still interested in investing in Web3, they want to look under the hood, right? They want to see what you're spending your money on. And so I think this has been a really great dose of reality. I think that people are going to be less likely to fall for scams because there's going to be more uncertainty. And so at SuperRare, we're trying to take this as a moment to educate people. We've spent a lot of time putting out articles that have to do with how to protect yourself from scams, how to make sure that you don't lose your crypto, how to, establish a crypto wallet. How do you kind of take these little steps to get involved in crypto? I personally, and this is not financial advice, see this as a great time to also invest in some of these crypto coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum, because the price is so low. Obviously, nobody knows if the price is going to go higher, but when you think about the fact that Ethereum was up to $4,000 and it's now down to like $1,400, it's a great time to invest in art because that same piece of art that is still listed at 1 ETH, the price is now, quite a lot less. And so if you're someone with extra money, invest in artists. They need it. They need the help. Invest in projects that you believe in, maybe join a DAO if there's a DAO with a cause you believe in. And yeah, I think it's a time for us to all just educate ourselves, whether that's in a little bit of art history, a little bit of tech history, a little bit of, coding information that never hurts. And yeah, just kind of seeing how long this is going to be. I mean, we also don't know how long the winter is going to be. Could be 6 months, could be another year. I'm pretty confident Super Rare will still be here. So for anyone who's still wanting to get involved, there will be time. But yeah, just be smart, read the headlines, don't do anything stupid.
Don't be in a rush.
Don't be in a rush, exactly. I think that's another problem with crypto, kind of hype culture. It's like, oh, you have to get in right now. And then you see people like how many people, not that I know personally, but I read so many stories of people putting all of their life savings into Bitcoin when it was at $60,000. And that's partially because crypto Twitter was like, it's going to 1 million. And banks were also predicting that Bitcoin was going to go to $200,000, $300,000 of value. So there's a big lack of responsibility from people who have influence on people's lives, and it's really, this is what I'm saying, always do your own research. Don't be caught like holding the bag because you bought Bitcoin at its peak or because you went into a PFP project that ended up being a rug pull. I think you have to really calculate what you're doing. And so again, this bear market, I think, is a good time for us to slow down because that's the problem with the Web3 ecosystem. It's all, they're all acting like we're rushing to market. We're rushing to be the first to do everything. And it's like, being the first doesn't mean that you succeed. Being the best means that you succeed. And if it requires more time, more thought, more building, take the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, the same article, we are all not going to fucking make it, your review on the NFT NYC. That's how I got to know about you. I read that article and that's how this podcast session is happening. Thank you so much. I'm going to drop the link of that specifically in the description. Yes. Guys, check it out. And there was a meme. I have a couple of questions for that article. There was a meme going around during NFT NYC where people are protesting. God hates NFTs and crypto. So what is that? What is happening?
Oh my gosh. So this is what I mean. I opened the scene of this article talking about how there is like the NFT NYC conference, the biggest NFT conference in the world. You have, Pride, where you have all these rainbow colors and, queer people coming to the city. You had a yogi conference. And then amidst all of this, people with signs saying God hates NFTs. Anytime God hates anything, I'm like, he made it though, supposedly. To be very clear, I am a full-blown atheist. So I don't believe in anything like that. But what I find really interesting is just, people have swallowed the propaganda so much that they think that NFTs are just one more way for rich people to get richer. If you, maybe look around you, there are so many ways in which rich people are getting richer, including tax cuts in the UK that Liz Truss is, kind of implementing, and all the tax cuts that President Trump implemented, and just, all of these ways in which people are taking advantage of the systems that be. And instead of people looking at their own governments, looking at their own systems that are taking advantage of their tax dollars, they're being, kind of siloed into hating crypto, which crypto is probably the one thing, in my view, that's going to save us from all of the bad deeds and the bad actors and all of the politicians that we can't trust. So Yeah, in my view, I think that when people hate something, it's a good sign that it's probably a good thing. Not always, but when it comes to technology, humans just don't like new things. Like Socrates famously didn't like or trust the written word. When the Gutenberg press was invented, people didn't trust books. That's why, partly why the Bible was so heavily printed. It was like, here, you trust the Bible, right? So this printing press can't be that bad. People hated the internet. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just people always hate new technologies because they don't know what it's going to do to us. But I think NFTs are here to stay, and the more people learn about them, the less they'll hate it.
So Web1 was a place where the owner of the website could display information and we couldn't interact with it. Web 2 was a place like we are in currently where the people interacting with it can create content. It's not just the owner who's creating content. In Web 3, content creators can own their content.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen in Web 4?
Oh my goodness. I haven't even thought much on Web 4. I think Web 4 is really going to be the marriage of human creativity and artificial intelligence creativity. Something that I have been looking into is just, there's been this uproar of DALL-E and Huxley and other artificial intelligence machines that are creating artworks that are like, they definitely
Amazing.
passed the Turing test. Let's just say that, right? And Sasha Stiles is a poet who is co-writing poetry with an AI that she has trained, right? So there's the fact of the matter is artificial intelligence can, people always thought of it as they can only do logical things or like algorithmic things, but it turns out they can also read, write, create art, potentially create music, create films. I'm actually really excited for an AI that is being worked on. I forget the name, but you can use it's text to image, but it's not a still image. It's a moving picture. As someone who wants to create, NFTs that blend poetry, film, and dance, the idea of being able to have a clip of film that an AI can provide for me is really exciting because that actually makes the process easier when you have some assets to work with. So yeah, I think that people are similar to NFTs, afraid of AI and afraid of being replaced. I think that again, if we create a world where things that we want to be man-made can be man-made, and things that will be easier to make with AI should be made with AI, especially if it's cheaper and maybe leads to like a universal base income where people can work part-time and not kill themselves making ends meet, right? So yeah, I think Web 4 is going to be the integration and the pairing of human creativity with AI, and hopefully it's going to be something that is towards the betterment of all humanity rather than like the Matrix.
You mentioned about music with AI. I am a 3D artist. I create animations, and it's a lot of work to find good music and then put it in, find if it is royalty free or not.
Yeah,
I've checked out few AI platforms which make music also, but they are not at that level like DALL-E that you can easily type in and get some good track out of it. But yeah,
right.
that is something that I'm looking forward to as well.
I think it's going to be cool. And I just, we're worldwide, we are very much in fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but like not only financially, also socially. And so I think that the mistrust that people tend to have with other human beings, especially from other countries, other colors of skin, other backgrounds, is translating into the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we feel about technology. And ever since the 1990s, I mean, I can't speak for before the 90s because I wasn't here, but from the 90s to now, there's been this underlying fear of, technology taking over. And it, like any tool, right? It depends on the person who is holding it. Like you don't blame the marker for making, a hate speech type of artwork versus a beautiful, artwork that celebrates humanity, right? It's not the tool's fault, it's the person who's wielding it. And so if I read this book recently called The Price of Tomorrow, And in the book, the author talks a bit about where AI is today and where it's going. And, I think it'd be better to embrace the possibilities of AI and to implement it in ways that help humanity. That's kind of the biggest thing, right? That we're talking about. Facebook, Apple, and Google are really the three companies that, and Amazon are the four companies that have the most like well-researched and well-funded artificial intelligence. Now, I think we know what people like Mark Zuckerberg and people like that might want to use that power for, which is why in the US we're talking about making artificial intelligence potentially open source, which totally fits in with Web3 ethos, right? So yeah, it depends. It depends on what happens with government, with big business, and with what we can do in Web3. I mean, if we can kind of force the change that we want to see, which I think we can do if we organize and stop worrying about just profits and becoming millionaires, yes, we should all work towards being able to fund ourselves through the thing that we love, right? I'd love to be a full-time poet or a crypto poet. I would love for you to be a full-time artist and podcast host. Like, these should be our goals. But if we can find a way to do this in a way that also betters our fellow man, like that would be optimal, and I think that's a part of Web3 that really draws me to it. It's not just about the individual, it's about the entire, community.
Absolutely. Totally agreed. You mentioned community. What is your definition? Because you gave a good word for that in your article. And
yeah, I think as a writer, I pay a lot of attention to words because it happens all the time, not just in crypto, but in every business where certain words get repeated to the point that it just is diluted of any meaning. A couple of words include revolution. Like, what is a revolution? It seems to me like a selling point now. Like, it's one of those words that comes up all the time. And kind of what's the other one? Disruptor, right? And that one predates crypto. That's just like 21st century tech disruption. And yeah, community. Community is something that I think a lot of PFP projects have turned into a consumer base. That's what community means to them. And especially for rug pulls, like, community means consumer base and a person who gets duped. But for me, community has to do with the people who you support and who also support you. I wasn't really into Twitter before getting this job, and then I realized that crypto Twitter was going to be the best place to.
Nobody was.
And like, it was not only the best place to contact artists for interviews and to get quotes from innovators, because people are willing to talk to you when you reach out to them via Twitter. And in varying ways. Like, obviously, since I have super rare Vinni as my name, that allots me a certain kind of privilege with people replying to me, which I am very grateful for, and use only for my reporting. But yeah, when I got into Twitter and started gaining followers and following artists and like really getting involved in the community, it's been kind of amazing. There are people who like come to every single Twitter space that I host, and there are people who comment and share my articles. And so these are people who not only want to support me as a writer and as an editor and a thinker in the space, but who, I like to think that by sharing my articles, they're helping to spread the word of like a more academic way of talking about crypto. We deal with a lot of people who talk smack about crypto art as if it's not as good or as valid as other forms of art. Sarah Zucker had shared a tweet about this before where, she has to deal with people calling her life's work garbage. Like, that doesn't feel good, right? We're kind of dealing with feeling good about ourselves when we're in crypto Twitter, when we're in the crypto space, and then being totally talked down to in other realms. And so I like to think that this academic approach to not only the crypto space, but also to artists and looking at their art in the context of art history, these are ways in which we can help to really solidify crypto art and NFT art as its own entity that is just as worthy of recognition and sales as any other, legacy artist or art form.
Talking about community, I host a weekly space on Saturdays. It goes on for 12 hours, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Wow.
Yeah, IST. We would love to have you there. So
Absolutely.
I really feel the sense of community there. We have people. We are in the 34th week of doing that. It's more than 7 months, and people are dedicatedly there every week, every space they are there. They have, whether they have sales or not, they are commenting, interacting, supporting each other, asking questions, and updating each other what they discovered. As you said, it's a wild west. There are many things to discover. So whatever we discover, we come and share there. Some people who have been there from a while, they share their experience with the people who are joining in new, and updating them about what needs to be done, what are the safety things that you need to take care about, and what are the other things you need to know before you start that we learned the hard way. So that
and that's what I love about this space. Like I came from the literary arts world of New York City, and when you're trying to make it in the literary world, it's so competitive, and everybody withholds their wisdom unless you find that mentor, who you probably had to pay for by going to an MFA, like I did. Like it's a really, really harsh landscape to succeed in. And what I love about the crypto world is everybody's like, come in, let me tell you what to do and what not to do. Like, we're sharing our experiences so that the whole collective is stronger, right? It's not about other people not making it so that I can make it. Like, ironically, I wrote a whole piece saying we're not all going to fucking make it, but I do think the underlying ethos of us wanting to help one another, is kind of what that phrase means in some context, and it's in that context that I use it now.
Yeah, I have never ever seen this in any other industries. We are all artists. We are all actually competitors, right? We are all chasing the same wallets or collectors or whatever it is. And still, that thought doesn't even occur to people. They are just wanting to help because they've been helped by somebody before them, and just wanting to do good for each and other without expecting anything. That is something very beautiful. That's for if you ask that question to me, this is the most beautiful thing I find about Web3.
I agree. I totally agree. I mean, and that's kind of besides that, like we recently worked on a year-long project called Bien Raro, and we at the magazine traveled to Mexico City to profile a bunch of artists there. And these are people who I had emailed a few times, like seen their work, like I didn't know them, and now we're like chatting in Telegram and chatting in WhatsApp and doing Twitter Spaces together. Like I've never seen this kind of welcome. And of course, like there's something, I'm half Mexican, so I'm familiar with like that Mexican hospitality, and that's like lovely. But I think it's like that meeting the crypto ethos of like openness, that just everybody's willing to be your new friend. Like that's, and to follow your work and to, kind of champion you in other contexts as well. Like that's just, I mean, that's something I have been looking for my whole life, and I found it here, and I had no idea this space even existed. So I hope more and more people come, because this is the right mindset. This is the mindset that I think is going to take us to Web4 and, beyond, hopefully to that, like that, that Ubermensch that Nietzsche was talking about. It could be all of us.
Talking about hosting spaces on Twitter, I am also going to be hosting meetups in Paris and Berlin and London. I'm going to be a host at I'm a speaker at NFT London. So I'm going to plan to have meetups in all these three cities, and even more in coming times. So bringing back the conversation to NFT NYC, would love to hear your inputs on that. How would you suggest somebody to make best use of conferences like these?
Yeah. So I was just like a press participant, like a fly on the wall for NFT NYC, but I spoke at Proof of People in London, and and I spoke at Ledger Fest 2 weeks ago in New York. And what I try to do as a speaker, like if I am granted a microphone for any amount of time, I just try to make sure that, my part of the conversation is steered towards the community and innovations within the space that can help build community. I have had experiences on panels where, this is still early days. Like people are shilling their projects in Twitter. They're shilling their projects as a panelist, which to me is like such a no-no. But whenever people, derail the conversation in that way, I just always bring it back to what is the technology, what is happening, because we're still in that stage where a lot of people are looking for funding, and therefore they take every single opportunity they can to try to sell their project. And, I know that's important, but I also think there's a time and place, right? Like, is your product going to actually bring people together? Is it going to answer any of the questions that we have? Like, the most important questions I have for the space are, how do we get more people to download and establish a crypto wallet? Like, that's something every single person in crypto should be thinking about solutions for. We are creating content to show people how to do it and talking about, all of the reasons why you would want a crypto wallet outside of collecting NFTs. I mean, having a crypto wallet and putting $500 worth of Bitcoin, like, to me is a great use case, and it's super easy and it has a start and an end, right? Like, how do we answer these questions so that more people get onboarded onto the space? You selling your product may or may not answer that question for people, So I think as long as in conferences we try as best we can to, to champion the artists that we love, champion the products that we love, but at the same time bringing it back to just the general crypto philosophy and the pillars of crypto ethos. That's where, for me, the conversation should be, because that's how we iron out what we want to do. Like, yes, profits are important, but any mission that's driven by just profits alone is destined to fail. You're going to go bankrupt, or the FBI is going to be knocking on your door because you did the wrong thing,
Yes, I understand where you're coming from. In the article, you very vividly mentioned how there are just community managers and marketing heads roaming around trying to pitch their projects and coming to you because of the super rare badge and always trying to sell.
And they're like, hey, can we have a meeting with Super? And I'm like, press pass. Everything you say to me is on the record.
So that question that you asked, onboarding people, that has been with me for a long, long time. How to onboard non-crypto natives to NFTs. So what if you had to give an elevator pitch to a non-crypto native to onboard and start their wallet, what would you say?
Oh, yikes. I think, like, to take it even a step back, one big problem with getting people to invest in NFTs is not only are they like, wait, that's a picture that anybody could save to their computer. I think actually answering that question is easier. It's hard to convince people to want to invest in art, right? I mean, I was never interested in investing in art pieces because to me, that was something that rich people did. I don't have enough money to pay my rent and go out to dinner, let alone buy a $90,000 painting, So I think that what I would do to convince people to buying NFTs is, first of all, saying that there are NFTs that cost $1. I've bought NFTs on Tezos that cost $1. So NFTs, to me, yes, you have the X copy that sells for 4 million. You have, artists who are selling even on the cheaper ends on super rare for, half an ETH, 1 ETH. That's great. Some people who don't have $300 to spend on an artwork, you can go to Tezos and you can buy artworks for $1, $5, $10, anything. And so it's really, I actually think, and I don't know if anyone will be offended, but NFTs in some ways could be like the poor man's asset, like if you're starting small. And as you start to build your repertoire, build your eye for art, and build your portfolio, and hopefully the amount of money you have to spend on artworks, you can move up into higher price point NFTs. And I think we just got to meet people where they are. You know, people are more willing to throw $5 at something they don't understand than 5,000. Like, let's meet them where they are.
Many of the people have come into crypto because of NFTs, including me. I was tracking crypto since 2015, 17, but it was just as speculative. I said, okay, something is going on. Still not
Right.
here for us. It was even banned in India for a while. But when NFTs started, it was like, oh, this is a cool application. I can actually exhibit my art around the world, connect with people, have people collect my works. And that has happened. I've been able to sell my physical artwork because of
Yeah.
NFTs to US and other countries. So this is from the artist point, onboarding an artist. But to collectors, I am like the question why. They're either wondering why, what will I get out of like collecting an art? So either some of them
It's a
think, okay,
great
how much money
question.
will it be?
Yeah, for me, like what really pushed me over the edge to collect my first NFT was um, I had spoken to this artist. It was Friend Five, and we had interviewed him for the magazine. One of our writers did, and it was a couple months later where I was just looking at this artwork, and I was like, I really like this artwork. After hearing about like who this person is, I really like this person. And to me, it was a matter of I love this art. I want to own it. I want to, make it the background on my phone. I had just learned about digital screens, which I still haven't purchased one because they're pretty expensive. And I live in New York City, so there's like no space for anything. But I intend to get a
You
digital
can use your
screen as soon as I
TV.
can. You can use exactly. I realized you can put it on your TV, and the trigger for me was, and it was a lot of money. It was half an ETH, which at the time I think was worth like $1,700, and that was a lot of money for me. I saved for months to buy it, and at the end of the day, I was like, this is an artist who is going to get $1,700 from me. And that's going to allow them to continue creating artworks. It's going to pay their rent. It's going to buy the tool that they need to make the next artwork. It's going to help sustain this person's artistic practice. And so it made me feel kind of like powerful, but also supportive, right? I was helping an artist in their career. And the benefit was not only that feel good feeling, it was also this amazing artwork that I just love. And I love looking at it. And I love, opening my phone on my MetaMask and be like, look at my NFT. Like, what people don't understand is psychologically owning an NFT is just as exciting and fulfilling. And, it hits those chemical pleasure receptors in our brains the same exact way as, buying a brand new outfit or buying, I don't know, a car or like whatever the item is that you can physically hold in your hand, it hits the same exact point. And people don't know that until they buy it and they have that feeling. So I encourage people to enjoy this. And, the pleasure doesn't go away. Like, that's what's really great about it. I know every NFT I bought subsequently has helped somebody out. And that person has often become my friend. Like, I love that when you buy an NFT, the artist is very likely to DM you and be like, hey, what's up? Thanks for buying my art. Who are you? It's great. Like, I love that. So
That brings me to another question that I'm really, really like to discuss with people and get different perspective. Not just in NFTs, but what does art in general do for the society? What does art do for the society?
You know, I so let me define art first. Like, obviously, fine arts. I'm going to include street art, and I'm going to include like memes, like all of these different things that are created in our digital visual language. I'm going to include in my definition of art. Artworks help us to kind of explain ourselves to other people. The greatest compliment that I got on the article we were discussing was a ton of artists wrote me and said, this article is exactly how I've been feeling for the last year. these are the words I couldn't find myself to explain like the pessimism and the annoyance and the frustration that they were feeling in the crypto space. A lot of the times when I look at artworks by, Xcopy or Mocara Gonzalez, any of these people who make a lot of like meme-esque artworks, and by that I mean artworks that involve social commentary. These are artworks that when you see it, you're like, oh man, I've got to share that with somebody, right? Art of all kinds is really the lexicon that helps us to communicate how we're feeling at any given time. And it allows us to share that with other people. And so art is really, in my mind, and I know I'm biased because I'm a poet, and I work in fine art, but art to me is that highest form of human communication because it surpasses the day to day. And that's because, good art takes hours to create and then sometimes years to create. And these are the things that we use in order to really like stamp a specific moment in time, right? I mean, some of my favorite, or I should say, the most meaningful things I've seen on the internet are memes that are like making fun of student loans or making fun of world events and like tying all these things together. And like those feelings of being seen and knowing that other people are going through the same things that I'm going through, like that is an amazing moment of connection. That's an amazing feeling, and that's what art does for us. It just it communicates all these unsaid, emotions, and it connects us to one another.
Me coming from a business background, or my whole family was into this, so always for me, I feel like value is delivered through business, somebody giving a product or giving a house or giving something that they can actually use and have something like that. So doing NFTs didn't make me feel very good about myself. What exactly am I? How am I adding value to this person's life? What has been given to them? I felt very selfish that, okay, something that I did for my recreation, I'm selling that and earning from that. I felt very negative about that. So what are your comments on that?
I think that is just basic us being guilted out of doing the things that we're passionate about. When I was in grad school, I went to grad school with the intention of making contacts, becoming the best writer I could be, getting a job, making money off of my poetry. And I was really frustrated when I was met with professors that would say, we're just going to focus on the craft right now. Ask those questions about how to make money off of your art later. And later never came. Like I had to figure out how to make money off of my passion. And that's actually what led me to journalism. My nonfiction before getting into journalism was more about like creative nonfiction, like writing humor essays or writing, just explorations of my life. That's what I want to do. I found journalism by writing first person narrative driven pieces like the one that we discussed. And I'm happy that I get to be really creative in like a gonzo style journalism with my writing at Super. My team is very flexible when it comes to what we write, as long as it's well researched and, kind of getting to a point. But I had to compromise. I don't make money off of poetry yet. I hope to with NFTs one day, but I've been taught that what I do has to have some sort of monetary value, right? And I struggle with this in my own mind sometimes too at Super, where it's like my article needs to push the needle one way or another. And I just think that like there are so many different kinds of value, and we've been taught that monetary value is the only value that matters. We've been taught to say, well, if you don't have a lot of money by the time you retire, or even worse, I would say by the time you're 30, like that you're a failure, right? There's like when I was a professor, I was literally making less money than the poverty line. Like I was a starving artist, and while I am very grateful to have my job and to be much more comfortable now, it doesn't change the fact that, I do grapple sometimes with like, well, I was teaching. I was helping kids learn how to write, and kids, they're college students, still kids. But I was helping people find confidence in their voice, and I was educating, and it was for a while hard for me to reconcile that, I need more money to live, but I also want to do good for my fellow man, and to help the next generation kind of like get on their feet. And so I think we have to do some unlearning ourselves and to stop thinking that we're only valuable to society if we help as a liaison to transmit value between things that, houses and cars and business deals. And, like to me, that stuff doesn't have the same value as what we're doing with adding value to visual art. I mean, people have been making digital art for decades, like really since the 60s, and then especially, in the 90s to now. And digital artists have been so discounted for all that time. And NFTs allowed for digital artists to have value.
True.
You think about like literature, like I am spending years of my life writing a novel. If that novel sells for $20, I'm only going to get $1 or $2 off of every sale. We live in a world where the arts are heavily discounted and nobody puts value in it. And NFTs and crypto in general are saying, no, art has the same value as an asset. Like if you're a day trader on Wall Street, why should you make more money than the artist who is contributing to a larger conversation about humanity? These things should be, I mean, again, I'm biased. I think art is more important than day trading. But there are ways in which, we're challenging the ways that people see value in what we do. And I think that's an important conversation to have, and not just in the arts, but across the board.
Just talking to you, I got a thought that looking at millions of years and thousands of years, how society has grown, everybody got value by farming or hunting and living from the ancestors.
Yeah.
Then the industrial came in, then the manufacturing and trading and all those things started. But we have evolved so much. There is so few people who are in agriculture these days. More are into manufacturing, and even more are into services. So with the times evolving, our needs are evolving, and the way to receive value the is evolving, right? So there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs and many other thoughts and philosophies there. So we are into digital now. Most of our life is spent in front of screens and digital and mindset and how we improve our own productivity. So what we are doing, you as a journalist or me as an artist, are I think catering to a different need, which is need of the hour. Isn't it? It's a very valid need, I believe, which we are catering to. It might not be physical, but it definitely provides value, and the returns can be seen monetarily also. And people also can.
Human beings love pretty things, like we like shiny things, and whether that's like a pretty seashell or like a nicely made bracelet or a painting or a JPEG, like humans have a desire to be surrounded by beauty, and I think we're really hitting a weird transition right now, because solar power, for example, is getting to the point where we could easily have enough energy to power the entire world with solar energy. But the problem here in the United States, and I imagine elsewhere, is that we have coal and oil companies who are saying, no, we don't want to give up our profits. So they want to continue polluting the environment rather than moving to a green solution, which, by the way, solar power in 10 years is going to be the point that like my bill might be literally 50 cents a month. Like it's not only better for the environment, it's cheaper. And so if we're getting to the point where technology can lead us to have a lower cost of living, if we can actually go to the point in wherein government protects its citizens from, for example, real estate becoming a speculation game. I mean, literally, New York City has not been affordable to live in since 2005. Like people are paying insane rents to live here. for apartments that have not been updated in decades. Like, we're getting fleeced. You want to talk about rug pulls? Like, the major cities of the world are the biggest rug pulls because they're saying you need to be here to make it, and then they're nickel and diming you for everything. And so we're getting to a point where our cost of living, when paired with technology and social spending, and hopefully a more equitable market for where to live and how to spend your money on groceries and stuff like this. If we could get to that point where everything is an affordable cost of living, where maybe there is a universal base income, which in the United States we could afford. We just don't. We choose not to. We choose to spend our money on stupid things like, insane military budgets. And, like in Florida, we just had a huge hurricane hit, and the infrastructure wasn't built to withstand hurricanes. I mean, you know what I mean? And now we're spending billions of dollars to fix it. Like, it's just so much stupid spending that could be turned into really benefiting citizens here and abroad. And we go back to that idea of AI. AI could potentially be doing all kinds of jobs that nobody wants to do. You know what I mean? Like, we could live in a society where people only work part-time and their basic needs are met. And if we live in that world, we can actually encourage people to be creative. I believe that there's an artist in everybody because human beings are innately and inherently creative. And what better utopia than that, where we all have a roof over our heads, we have food to eat, we have community, and we can spend time doing whatever creative thing it is. I mean, I don't care if you're into visual arts, maybe you're into carpentry, maybe fishing is your art. I don't know. but I think we have the ability to move into that future where that is exactly what we're doing. We're all artists. We're all doing what we love with most of our time. We just need to get those people in our society, mostly the leaders that are there now, to get out of our way.
You mentioned about electricity and the coal and the natural resource industry. I think it's like tobacco, those people putting out counter ads that tobacco is useful for you and so on. And then
it's good for
when
you.
It got very clear.
It looks cool, right?
So eventually it has to come to a point where everybody knows, and government is pressured to change their rules like that. Talking about basic level of income and other things about spending, you are in a much better position in USA as compared to any other countries.
Right.
But yeah,
so we should be setting the example, and and that's what's interesting, right? Like, yes, we are a first world country. We have the ability to do this, but we choose not to. I mean, the US has millions of children in poverty and who are starving. And like, we have 40 million people who are indebted with student loans, myself included.
That's crazy. The student loan thing, I just cannot wrap my mind around it.
No, and I wrote an article about my experience because I finished school with $100,000 of loans. Like, at age 25, I had $100,000 of loans. The economy sucked, so I didn't get a job until like 2 years later after it's grown. And like, I'm very grateful for the Biden administration for giving a portion of that. But, the major problem in the United States and other places is not only the cost of living, but the cost of education. Like, why does anybody have to have $100,000
totally unnecessary
of loans just to be able to
get
enter
a certificate?
The workforce? Yeah, to get a piece of paper. Like, that's so silly. And so I think about, like, if some of the things that we're working on in Web3 could potentially translate into what we're doing with government. That's why I talked a little bit about governance DAOs earlier. I remember earlier this year, there was a funny thing going on Twitter that was like, describe what, the United States government is. And the best answer on Twitter was the worst DAO in the world.
Oh.
because we're forced to give money to it. in the form of taxes, and we don't really receive anything in return. Like, yes, we receive, the safety of living here, but how safe is it? We have shootings every day because they want us to have guns. And, so it's like, it's a funny conversation. And I think the more that people with money from crypto start backing candidates that are running for office, the more that people from our movement get into politics, we're going to start shifting the conversation to exactly what we've been talking about today. How do we create a better life for everybody in the United States, and hopefully by extension, everyone else in the world? Because the US funds, hospitals and arts programs and, governments all over the world. Like, the United States has its tentacles everywhere. And so how do we change what we're doing, from selling guns to Saudi Arabia to maybe, paying for education for kids in Africa? Like, it's all just spending.
Web3, what else it's doing is this, solving the problem of education. Punk 367, I don't remember the number, but he's starting a university online with Web3, and it's free. You can participate and learn more about it. And you have the internet. Everything is almost like pretty much free for education. You really don't need to depend on a certificate to get a job. And even many industrialists and tycoons are realizing it. Even Elon Musk said that, I don't want to see your certificates of college, but what is the actual problem you can solve? Like, that's the main point in his interview. What is the toughest challenge that you had faced, and how did you solve it? So
no, I
think
that. I love
we're
that.
moving there.
Because, like, as a former professor at the college level, as someone who invested 7 years of my life to higher education as a student, I can tell you that college does not prepare you for the workforce. If it doesn't prepare you for the workforce, then why is a bachelor's degree the minimum requirement to apply to most jobs? Like, there's this problem here where it's like the education, I don't even know what to call it, education industrial complex, where it's like, you're forced, it's like the taxis, right? In New York City, you're forced to buy a medallion in order to drive your taxi. Like, it's so silly. And I think,
what's a medallion?
A medallion.
What is a medallion?
It's like it's basically your license that allows you to drive your taxi in New York City. You can't legally drive a taxi without this medallion. And so, we all understand scarcity in NFTs, right? There is a specific amount of medallions, and lots of people want to come and drive a taxi. And there were some stories of the medallions being sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you're talking about,
a black market.
Like, on a black market. Like, my father was a taxi driver in the 80s. He's a Mexican immigrant. And, like, it's kind of crazy. This is, an industry that's taking advantage of immigrants and taking advantage of people who are driving cars for a living. And that's kind of, you come to the idea of Uber coming in, disrupting that industry and making it so that anybody could have this job. Like, how can we in Web3 continue to look for problems and find solutions? And I think the fact that we, like you said, we don't necessarily put the emphasis on where you went to school or what you did. I mean, think about all the people, like, for example,
and people even don't care about identity in Web3.
And they don't care
identity
about
also doesn't matter.
No, exactly.
You can
it's about skills. It's about your skills, your abilities, and the way you think, right? And I take it back to, again, history and humanity is cyclical. The people who made some of the greatest scientific discoveries were people who were doing science in their spare time. Like, Darwin wasn't a scientist. Like, Newton wasn't really a scientist, right? And but they were, right? They were doing it as hobbies. These were people who were just exploring on their own time and with their own perspectives. And so Web3 is exactly that. It's people with outside perspectives, with, in a lot of ways, non-elitist perspectives, who are seeing problems in the world, and they're like, all right, what's the solution? We have currency, we have coding, we have community. Those are really the things you need in order to fund a revolution, right? You need funds, and you need people who are willing to fight for your cause. So as long as we continue to have a positive cause, something that is driven by benefiting the collective and looking for that utopian world that I think we can get to in some way, shape, or form, that's the most exciting thing for Web3. And I hope we can maintain this spirit. I think we really have a lot of big
Absolutely.
business, like I wrote in my article, eBay just acquired Known Origin. Like that's another thing that could happen in a bear market. If certain startups in crypto don't have the funds that they need, they're going to be more willing to be bought out by Facebook, who we know Facebook is always on the prowl to buy something new, right? Or Google or Microsoft. And so we have to be smart about our money. We have to be smart about our business practices, and we have to maintain our independence so that we can continue to move the crypto movement forward.
Vinny, you have been a journalist. I believe that with some learnings in a different profession can be used to enhance skills and just the output and productivity in some other professions as well. So what are the
Yeah.
key learnings that you have gained through your career as a journalist that you would like to share that our viewers could find that useful in their journeys as well?
Totally. I think the biggest thing that I've always been a champion of is to never take anything for granted, specifically pieces of information or relationships, right? Like I think a big problem we have is that we tend to see things online and we don't at all question the authenticity of the source. We don't question, oh, is this person being genuine or are they just trying to sell me something? You should always do your own research. You should always interrogate whatever it is. And even if you have your own point of view that you think is really well thought out, question it a couple months down the road. I mean, you have to recognize your bias, and you have to recognize that human beings, we tend to be a little lazy. Like we'd rather believe what we want to believe rather than do the work of challenging our beliefs. But we have to continue to challenge our beliefs, challenge what other people tell us, to make sure that we're making the right decisions for ourselves and for our society. And that's something I learned not only as a writer, but as a professor of English and research methods. I also think that, as a poet, like being just really creative and open to other possibilities and experimentation is really important. And, experimentation, while it's great for artists, it's also great for entrepreneurs. It's also great for marketing. Like experimentation and being comfortable being uncomfortable is kind of a huge element of success, and I found that from being a struggling creative writer. And I would say, finally, just we live in a time where we all have to wear multiple hats, right? Like even you're talking about, your past working with like real estate, you're doing a podcast, you're an artist, you have all of these things that you're capable of doing. I similarly have tons of, skills that I've acquired throughout my life. Continue to foster that, not because you think it's going to make you a better candidate for a job, but because it makes you a more well-rounded person. It makes you just think about every single thing in different ways. Like when I come to an article, I think about, when I come to my performance background, I'm like, is this something that's going to entertain someone? Because a good article should also be something that people enjoy reading, right? And the artistry of writing and the intelligence of being a researcher and, a critical thinker. Like, keep on adding those hats to yourself as long as it, propels you as a person. I think that's something that's really important.
I have a follow-up.
But yeah.
I have a follow-up question to that. You said you were into research, and as journalist, it's very important for you to get those right information. And in Web3, this term is thrown around a lot. Do your own research. And you said that you shouldn't rely and you should always challenge the source of information. How does one do their own research and find that information that they need, which could be authentic and right for them?
Yes, I love this question because it was like a whole section of my class in college that I was teaching. We have to understand that there are so many different sources online and they're not created equal. We're also living in a propaganda-rich environment, which means that on the internet, you can find an article that supports every single opinion, whether it's right or wrong. And so when you're looking for sources, you want to make sure that you are using a reputable source, which would include, any kind of like data that's done by a third party. A problem I've seen in the crypto space is that a lot of blockchains, as well as Web3 companies, will put out their own reports of how well they're doing. That's a conflict of interest. Like, that's a basic journalistic conflict of interest. I could sit here and I could be like, hey, everybody, my articles are reaching 1 million people. Like, you don't know if that's true, right? That could just be a claim. If I don't have anything to back it up, then you shouldn't believe that. And if I'm giving you stats that I found myself, take it with a grain of salt, because I might have done something to make the stats more favorable to me, right? And so you want to do that. And when it comes to crypto, there's obviously a lack of information as compared to other industries because we're so new. But when you look at, for example, a crypto coin like Ethereum, that's something that there's a lot of research that is outside of the Ethereum community that is being done to really tell you what's going on versus, a coin like Solana, who has done a lot of self-assessment. And as you can see, Solana's had a lot of network issues, right? That they kind of tend to cover up in their press releases by kind of shooting the attention somewhere else. So when I say doing your research, don't go off of one source. Like I always say at least 3, 5 or more is best. And do your research on crypto Twitter too. Like, I've done so many like just tweet threads where I'm asking the community, what do you guys know about this? And people pile in because, like we said, like we established, people like to share information and share what they know and share the pitfalls, right? And so, yeah, use all of the resources that are at your disposal to get to the truth of the matter, and just never blindly throw money at anything or connect your wallet to anything. Like, make sure everything is 100% kosher.
I think even Reddit is a good platform, and forums like this, where even when
Yes.
people are anonymous, they share their views and articles. Such good information they give. Spot on, which is spot on. I always go to Reddit for any technical help I need during using those
Yes.
softwares, or if actually my journey, NFT journey started with Reddit before Clubhouse or Twitter or anything else. So I think that can be a source. But as you mentioned, not less than 3 articles. See that, take it a pinch of salt if it is published by the own person who's talking about it.
Yeah.
See for cross references and peer reviews if possible. Okay, that was some amazing information. Couple of more questions and then we'll go to the rapid fire round. As you are at Super Rare, what do you think? How can one artist sell their work?
Like if you're on Super Rare, or if you're trying to get on Super Rare.
In general, what are the tips you would give to one artist to increase their sales or to have a better sale and
Yeah.
marketing?
I think something that's really helpful is talking to different publications and seeing if anyone is willing to interview you, like for, Right Click Save or Outland or Super Rare Magazine. It never, is a bad idea to just put yourself out there. And in that way, making sure that you're not saying, hey, interview me because I'm a nice guy or because my art is cool. Like, you can say, hey, I'm doing this really interesting thing. Would you be interested in learning more about it? Try to just not like, don't shill your projects. Like, establish, as objectively as possible what you're doing that's interesting, and share that with editors to see if you can get a profile. Do the same thing online. I mean, I can't say this for other people. I'll just speak for myself. I don't like when people are obviously shilling. It rubs me the wrong way, and it makes me feel like, okay, you're only interested in your sales. You don't care about community. You don't care about the work, right? Spend time marketing yourself as someone who's passionate about what you're doing. And I would say, like you asked me earlier, if you're not, if you don't have an online presence, are you not going to be able to thrive? I, at base, don't think that's true, but I also think we have to be realistic that people who have an online presence tend to have better sales in crypto art and NFTs. So if you're not on Twitter, if you don't even know where to start, go follow artists. Like, you can go and look at the people that I'm following and just follow all of those people. Like, it literally starts just by becoming part of the community and following people that you like, following publications that you like, follow NFT Now, follow Super, follow OpenSea. Just get out there and start tweeting, you know, your work, and meeting people out there and going to Twitter Spaces, because this is, I have to say, the conversation is happening on Twitter. That's where it is. And I'm not saying you're going to find the community in 5 minutes, but you can find the community in 6 months, as long as you're continuing to try to be a part of it. And just mint work that you're proud of. You know, don't mint things because you're like, oh, I just want to get it out there. If I mint it, someone will buy it. Only mint your best stuff, because remember, the blockchain is immutable, and even after you burn it, the record is still there. So, like any artist, only put your highest quality work out there. So yeah, those would be my tips.
Wow. Tell us a bit more about your upcoming novel and the poetry that you want to get cryptofied.
Yeah, totally. So I was a professional dancer in my college years, and
what style?
Yeah, modern dance. But I'm also trained in ballet, tap, jazz, musical theater. I was originally trying to be a performer, so I'm also classically trained as a singer, and trained as an actor.
Wow.
And so so I'd love to.
Not many people know this.
No, it's a little bit of that's my fun fact that nobody expects. But I want to bring this practice into my NFTs, and so the NFTs are going to be poetry that I've written, performed by me, and then there's going to be some sort of like acting or dance presence. And I also have poems that are also music based, and so some of it is sung, some of it is spoken word, and so I'm going to use that as the audio and then create short films, and that's going to be the poetry that I tokenize. And then the novel that I'm writing is actually about a young woman who is struggling to pay off her student loan debt and is grappling with all of the ways she could get rid of it. And unfortunately, she thinks about, do I fake my own death? Do I kill myself? Do I move to another country and change my name? Like, the stress, the depression, the anxiety is so great that she's trying to find any way to get out of it, because she doesn't feel like the traditional ways are going to work. And so that's that novel. It's a little bit heavier, but I think it's going to really speak to literally millions of people who are going through the same thing.
All right. So will it have a touch of romance and drama as well, or mystery?
Oh, definitely romance and drama. She's with one person, but in love with someone else. So.
Okay. And a surprise element or suspense?
Always.
Okay, I'm looking forward to this. And do you have a name for it? Have you thought about a name for it?
I usually title things at the end. The working title is Indebted, but I think it's probably going to change between now and then, because I'm still working through it. Writing is a funny thing. You can have an idea of where you're going, but the story really writes itself. The story tells you what's happening next, so we'll see what happens.
And by when? What is the timeline of you to publish this?
I'm about halfway done, and that's taken me about 2 years. So I'm hoping to be done in another year or two. That's my timeline, but we'll see. I've been doing so many extra projects in crypto education lately, which I love, but hopefully I'll have some time to dedicate to just writing.
That would be wonderful. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Best wishes for that. It's time. Now it's time for the rapid fire. What are you curious about?
Ooh, artificial intelligence.
What is on your bucket list next?
I would say going to Scotland.
Why? Why Scotland? It rains a lot over
It
there
rains
and
a
you won't
lot, and
understand their English.
I love rain. I love their version of English because I can't understand it, and I'm part Scottish, so I would just be really,
Oh,
really delighted to see where my ancestors came from.
okay. Name three people living or dead that you would like to have lunch with.
Oh my gosh, that's easy. Edgar Allan Poe, Virginia Woolf, and ooh, the third one's hard. I'd say William Shakespeare.
And what question would you ask them?
I'd probably ask each of them because they're all writers, how they get through writer's block. Because each one of them was super prolific. So maybe the question would be, did you ever experience writer's block? Because it doesn't seem like it.
So the same question for all three or a slightly different question for others?
Oof, yeah. Well, I'd probably start asking them about my favorite works by each of them. But what I love about like Shakespeare is like since he was a theater man, like he kind of like blended like the performing arts with the written arts, and so I'd ask him questions about that. Virginia Woolf, stream of consciousness, which is the style of writing I am using for my novel. Just any tips and tricks for that, and Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah, ask why he's such a freak, man. All his stuff is super horror and like scary, which I love. I have two black cats, so I'm like, I'm here. Let's just say Halloween is my jam. I'm ready.
It's coming up. What advice would you like to give to your younger self?
Oh, honestly, I think about this all the time. I would just tell my younger self everything's gonna be okay. I think I spent most of my life up until now, like really. So I grew up really poor. I grew up with food insecurity. Um, I grew up just like not really knowing if everything was going to be okay, if I was going to grow up to be okay, and if I was going to be a failure or not because of all the obstacles and kind of the disadvantages that I had. And I'm just so proud that like I'm still working through like some of the emotional problems that come with growing up like that, but to know that I've been able to become pretty stable and loved by a community. And yeah, I would just tell myself everything's going to be okay.
Absolutely. For a moment, I thought you were going to say, please don't take the student loan.
Yeah, I have problems with that because like I've thought of that, but I also think that these are all the things that have pushed me to be who I am, and like yes, the feelings of despair that come with student loans like sucks, but at the same time, it makes you stronger, it makes you smarter, and I'm happy to say I'm at a point where like I'm not saying the student loans will be gone anytime soon, but I'm finally at a point where I feel like I can move forward with it and hopefully educate other people. And one of my goals is to actually do activism for education reform, not only at the college level, which is too expensive, but also at the public school level. We're not taught the quality of education that we should, and that's part of why we have so many problems. We're all talking about
Absolutely.
different things. Like education to me is the key to everything, and most importantly, the key to a peaceful life, which is all I want for myself and my peers.
This is not in the rapid fire. You talked about education. I wanted to understand how much is the student teacher ratio in America? How many like in a class?
So it varies, but I would say most of the time you have one teacher to 30 students, and that's impossible to really get one-on-one feedback. I think that's really problematic. I think smaller classes would be better. But in my view, the problem with education in the United States is that people want to group together kids of different learning styles and different learning capabilities in one class. And so you're dealing with a teacher, and I experienced this as a college professor, and I was a visiting resident teaching creative writing to kids in the Bronx, New York, and teaching them in Spanish in some cases. And you're tasked with 30 kids. Some kids are really like just not interested in what you have to say, and other kids are like sitting on the edge of their seats waiting for the next instruction, and everybody in between, and it's really difficult, and that doesn't service the kids on either side of the spectrum. I think we need to learn that there are kids who are visual learners, kids that are audio learners, kids that just learn in different ways and at different speeds, and we should group those kids together in smaller sessions and give them the specialized education that they deserve. And that also includes hiring more teachers and paying teachers more so that they don't have to take on extracurricular activities to pay the bills. It's a reform that's needed at every single level, from kindergarten through college, to make it more affordable and to make it more equitable, and just more effective.
Yeah, I don't know how much that would increase the cost again of the college, but I'm sure there's a big chunk going in for just marketing or or maintaining the status name of the college. So if you reduce for that and give the teachers more and hire more teachers, I think that would be something cool.
This way, like the presidents of Harvard and NYU are getting at least $1 million salary. Why are you getting $1 million? Like, what the hell is that? I think we need to kind of reevaluate where we spend our money at every level: education, government, companies in Web3, everything. But the other part of it is, and I've written a lot about this, the US government used to fund colleges. And so money that came from the government to the college would reduce the cost of tuition for everybody. And so the fact that they pulled out of that agreement and have basically, like any business, passed the cost down to the consumer being the student, or in some cases, if you come from a wealthy family, the student's parents, that's what's led to an issue, right? And so if we have increased social spending where we can make sure tuition is affordable, that's going to lead to more people going to college and fewer people graduating with insane amounts of debt.
That brings me to a point which Dr. Malpani mentions a lot. He was there. He was a guest in one of our previous episodes, and I'll be also having them specially for education-based topic in the future. He puts in the thought that homeschooling is better than schools, and there's a big issue of tuitions in India. So like students go for tuition at school in the morning, they come back home, then they go for again another professionally. Do you know what tuitions is? Like they have the special classes after school, and this is the biggest problem. Like everybody does it. It's even a joke. Like what do students in India do for fun in summer vacation? They go to tuitions. So
all over the world we have to really just reevaluate what we're doing, because it's a disservice to our kids, and I've thought a lot about homeschooling, at least for like a portion of time, because I think school functions really well as like a social experiment and learning how to socialize with other kids. But I mean, I think about the quality of education, and a lot of parents right now have to supplement their kids' educations to begin with, and it all depends on resources. I work remotely, so that is an advantage that I have over, other people who, have to go out to go to work. But again, that's why I come back to this idea of like, if we can just revolutionize the way that we work, I think most people could work remotely, and if they want, or work hybrid, right? And finding ways that we can make lives better for everybody, so they can spend more times with their kids or their cats, spend more time, not commuting, but doing what they love and not being exhausted, and playing. Exactly.
Playing for kids. Yeah. also the part about auditory learning and the different styles of learning. I think with the online and Web3, all that can be catered. And I would love to see more companies in education coming in with those kind of
Yeah.
package, like trying to, first of all, evaluate the student, what kind of learning skills he's better suited to, and then giving them an option to, okay, you take this set of classes and lectures, or
Yes.
this options you go through. That would be
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. Because I took training on the different types of students, but I then, as a teacher, have to spend time with the class of 30 kids and then try to figure out which kid is what. Like, that is such a pressure on the teacher. And it also allows for a lot of, just me maybe not knowing which kid is which for a long time. I like this idea of people having some sort of like assessment. And what's cool is like the type of student or the type of learner that you are is not gauging your intelligence. It's merely saying, do you learn better from a piece of data written as a sentence or shown to you as a graph or, represented as a metaphor? Like, it's really just finding out if the same amount of information, which one speaks to you the most. That's it. And then creating curriculum based on how to get the same information to the many different minds that you're trying to communicate it to. I mean, I don't see why in this day and age we can't cater education to the millions of kids that are here,
Absolutely. Getting back to the rapid fire questions, which is your favorite movie?
Oh my gosh. Ooh, that's a hard one. I would say, oh gosh, nothing immediately. Actually, a lot
Is
of
it
things
hard?
immediately
Is it
come to
hard
mind.
because you don't? Is it hard because you don't like watching movies, or is it hard because you have so many options, so many movies that come to
I
mind?
have so many movies that come to mind. But I have a film studies minor, so I like look at movies kind of like as if I were reading a book, like really critically. I'll say for the purpose of this question, I'll say The Nightmare Before Christmas, Tim Burton.
I haven't seen. I got to put that on my watch later list. This question is going to be very tough for you again, even more tougher than movies. What is your favorite book?
Ooh, that one actually, I got that one. My current favorite book is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, and I'm using it as my like North Star for the novel I'm writing. It's very different in content, very different in the way it's laid out, and the plot, of course, but stylistically, it's just the perfect book.
I'm reading this book called The Artist Way. Have you read it?
I have. That's a really good book.
It's a whole workshop in a book, and I'm very thankful to our friend Angad who has gifted that to me. Another NFT community met friend and member. So yeah, that's how we
Nice.
can make different benefits of connections in NFT. So that's a
Sharing
great book
knowledge.
I'm working on. All right. So, Vinny, what are the social or charitable cause that are close to your heart?
I'm just really into trying to level out the playing field. Like anything that I can do to help, with the fact that so many people in America are, marginalized based on race or gender or sexuality or class. And really, all of these things are tied to class, right? Like race is a way to distinguish between class. The color of your skin is a way to distinguish between class. Same with gender, same with sexuality, same with education. And so anything that I can do or write or educate on the problems with class and how we can kind of mitigate these issues and make a level playing field for everybody to like have a chance at accruing wealth. That's kind of that's the hill I'm going to die on.
I'm going to steal that phrase from you. That's the hill I'm going to dive on. Thank you. All right, Vinny, what do you like to do for fun?
I actually, in the last couple of years, got into surfing. So I'm still pretty bad at it, but I always have a good time when I'm out in the water trying to catch some
Okay.
waves.
I thought internet surfing. Just kidding.
Ah,
Uh,
that too, but that's a
uh,
little less active.
do you surf? Do you have surfing venues in New York?
We do, yeah. We have the Rockaways. We have tons of beachfront property, like on the edge of the city. So it's about 45 minutes, an hour away, and just spend the whole day at the beach, go surfing.
Okay. All right, Vinny. We are coming to the end of the show. Thank you so much for coming to Rocklaz. Any final thoughts or suggestions or feedback that would you like to give for the audience or for me? Would be much appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, this has been so much fun. Great hosting, like great conversation. And yeah, if anybody has any questions to ask me, they can find me on Twitter, Vinny the Snail. And yeah, I'd love to connect. And if anybody has any questions, concerns about crypto or about journalism or anything else, I'm here to be an asset.
Awesome. I'm going to drop your links or a link tree in the description of this thread. Definitely.
Perfect.
Oh,
Yeah, and then like I said, I'm teaching that class, the applications of NFTs in Web3 for class 101. So if there's anybody who wants to take part in an education experience where I talk about all the ways NFTs can be used, it'll be a great resource that'll launch later this month.
oh, that would be very interesting. That's an interesting course and topic. So, best wishes. Definitely join in and expand the horizons of what all can be possible with
Yeah.
NFTs.
And it's beginner level, so it's made for people who know nothing or who know a little bit or know a lot. There's just tons and tons of topics to explore.
All right. Thank you so much for joining in. To all the viewers, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this till the end, till now, you are amazing. And
Truly.
if you have any more questions for me, if you want to be featured on the show or have a guest for us to feature on the show, do let me know. And yeah, to support the show, you can check out my NFTs. And remember, what is a pizza without cheese, and what is your collection without a Tanmay NFT? So get one today. Yes, thank you for watching. See you all in the next episode. Stay tuned. Ciao.